Ultraman Towards the Future for the Super Nintendo. This game is known for being one of the most broken fighting games on the market, and after playing this game, I have no reason to object to that statement. You know a game is bad when you can say rather confidently that Shaq Fu is a better fighting game. Yes, I said it. Shaq Fu, as bad as it is not nearly as bad as Ultraman Towards the Future. And unless you're Bill Gates, you couldn't pay me enough to take that statement back. At least Shaq Fu is worth playing for the shits and giggles aspect, but Ultraman doesn't even have that. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's begin the review, shall we? The first thing I noticed about this game was the lack of a second player option. If you're wondering why I think this is a bad thing, it's because Ultraman Towards the Future is a fighting game. In most fighting games, you're given the option to include a second player. That way you can challenge your friends to a fight if they ever want to play with you. In this game, however, you don't have that. You're only given a one-player option, and that's it. Another problem I found with this game is that you can't choose who you want to fight as. Again, in most fighting games, you're brought to a player selection screen and can choose from any number of characters to fight as, each with their own various stats and moves. Not this game. The only person you're allowed to fight as is Ultraman, who is perhaps the weakest fighter in the game. So we don't have the option of a second player to fight against, nor do we have the option to choose who we fight as. That means the only thing we have to do in this game is play the story mode, which is the whole game in a nutshell. And yes, there is a story in this game. But unless you actually looked at the manual or watched all the episodes of Ultraman Towards the Future, which is what the game is based off of, you're not going to have any idea about what's going on. The story is pretty weird to say the least. Ultraman follows Gudis to Earth probably to collect rent or something, where the evil mutant begins infecting various living creatures with the virus through unprotected sex. And now Ultraman must face these evil creatures so he can get his money and go home. Yes, I know I usually do a much better job at butchering a storyline, but give me some credit. It's not like I had much to go with anyway. You know, there's something else that's bothering me about the title screen. Do you notice anything missing from it? I don't see anything to indicate an option menu. In most games, when you get to the title screen, you have access to options menu to do things like set difficulty level or check the sound. In this game, however, there is nothing to indicate that an option menu even exists. Fear not, though, because an option menu does exist. Yep, even though there is no option button on the title screen, an option menu does exist in the game. Of course, you never know that it actually exists or how to access it unless you look in the manual. How do you get to it? Hold select and press enter. Do I even have to say how retarded this is? And let this be a foreshadowing to how bad the controls are going to get. Well, let's start the game, shall we? Before each match, you're given the name of the enemy you'll be encountering, as well as his stats. By stats, I mean you'll be given his height and weight. That's it. Nothing about strength, speed, intelligence, special moves, age, or sex. Just height and weight. That's it. After getting the enemy stats, you get this epic intro to the fight which shows Ultraman flying into battle and growing big and tall. However, as he grows, you begin noticing how much of a pixelated mess the game really is. You probably can't see it right now with the YouTube quality in this video, but Ultraman looks more like a random assortment of pixels that some drunk game designer threw together in 10 minutes than the giant humanoid alien that he's supposed to be. And don't expect the graphics to get better once the fighting starts. If anything, they take an absolute nosedive. These are some of the worst graphics that I've seen in any 16-bit video game. In fact, I've seen better graphics in some NES games. Could Bandai have been any more half-assed with the graphics? Actually, I think they went out of their way to piss you off with them. Just look at the foreground. It gets in your way in some levels, making it difficult to see what you and your enemies are doing sometimes. When this happens, it's easy to miss hitting your target, or not even notice when your enemy is attacking. How are we supposed to play this game effectively when we can't even see what the hell we're doing? But you know, in full honesty, I'm probably over-exaggerating how bad the graphics in the foreground are, since you'll be frustrated with the goddamn controls more than anything else in the game. Once you start moving Ultraman, you'll find out that the controls are stiffer than rigor mortis. I swear, you really have to play this game to fully understand just how stiff these controls can get. The movement and gameplay is both slow and dull to a point of sheer obscenery. When you try to move Ultraman towards his enemy, he'll take his sweet-ass time and literally inch his way towards his opponent. And when you try to attack them, his attacks are so slow that it makes waiting in line at the DMV seem like riding Superman at the Six Flags theme park. And don't expect the fighting sequences to be fun either, as the moves at your disposal are limited to no imagination at best. You have the generic punch, and the generic kick, and the generic uppercut, and the generic jump kick, and the generic kneel down and hit your opponent in the balls punch. Do these moves sound exciting to you? And guess what? You don't have a low kick at your disposal. Just what kind of unimaginative morons programmed this game? Anyway, the attacks are all rendered laughable, not so much from their generic nature, but from something much more serious. They barely do anything! Look at this! My enemy barely lost any health from the generic kick, which you'll be using for most of the fight since the generic punches don't have as far a reach. And to make matters worse, every time you hit your opponent, he'll be flung back several yards. Now this isn't too uncommon in fighting games, but remember that Ultraman moves at the same speed as an amoeba, so doing massive damage to your opponents is going to be a very time-consuming process. Of course, you do have your special attacks, which can actually do a fair amount of damage to your opponents. You can activate your special attacks by pressing the Y button on your controller, but you'll rarely ever use them. Now I know what you're thinking. Why would I barely use them, Overlord, especially if they do far more damage than the punches and kicks? Well, I'll tell you, and it's going to bring us to the most problematic portion of this game, the fighting mechanics. In most fighting games, the goal of the game is simple. Reduce your opponent to 0 health and you win the match. Now just watch as I reduce this opponent's health to 0. Notice anything weird? Yeah, that's right. Although his health has reached 0, he's still standing. I'm going to speed this up to show you just how ineffective reducing your opponent's health to 0 really is. As you can see, I'm kicking the living shit out of him and keeping him at 0 health, but he still refuses to go down, and I waste all 3 minutes of my time and I fall over dead.